And welcome to the 2021 Illinois Wesleyan Men's Basketball Preview, Part 2. Part 1 you can find on iwhoops.com. I am joined by the head men's basketball coach of the Titans, Ron Rose. There you are, Ron. It's great to see you.
Hey, good seeing you, Bob. We're in the Zoom era here.
We are, and I hope you're impressed that I've got a microphone. I've got headphones. This could be
Somewhat
the start of something.
intimidating. You're a little intimidating, Q. I wasn't expecting the microphone and headphones.
I like that. It's kind of like when you come into like Bosco's house or something. He likes to intimidate you a little bit. You know, he wears those glasses, and that's my version of it.
It's working for you. I'll just tell you, it's working.
Well, Ron, as we think about part 2 of the preview, we intentionally pushed it until as close to game week as we could get because, quite frankly, we didn't know that there would be a game week.
Right.
And here we are with precious amount of days until the Carroll game on Saturday. Can you believe that we're at this point where it seems like there's going to be a basketball game Saturday?
You know, I've said this to other people, having coached now for close to 30 years. November and December were, you know, I think most people, I guess, are creatures of habit, and you're in a certain rhythm you're used to, and it was just odd not being in that rhythm. Coaching games, preparing for games, going to high school games. But this equally feels odd to me now that we didn't have November, December, that we've had to navigate through the pandemic. To really think that we're playing Saturday, I'm having a hard time putting my mind around that this looks like it's really going to happen. With that optimism, it always has to be somewhat guarded in this environment because you know, a positive test here or a positive test there or something else happens. But you know, I think our guys have handled this situation. Our team has handled it as well as we possibly could. We've tried to stay united as a group with a vision, hoping that we would get to Saturday and knock on wood, looks like we're really close.
Just let's talk about this whole crazy thing we're all living through. I last saw you on February 1st of 2020. I flew up for the Carroll game, the Jack Sikma celebration. The world seemed incredibly normal on February 1st. The Shirk Center was packed, probably 2,500 people there. There was no social distancing. I can tell you there were no masks being worn. There certainly were no masks at schooners afterwards, that's for sure. And then about a month and a half later, the world literally changed. You had that week where North Central and Elmhurst are getting ready to play in the Sweet 16, and that was canceled, and the tournament was canceled. Just talk about what that week and the months after that were like for you as we got into the pandemic.
Yeah, you know, I think back to our last game, which was the conference tournament, playing the championship game against Elmhurst. It was a big crowd, a lot of excitement. And at that point, you were starting to hear about the coronavirus. And, you know, at that time, didn't really understand what the impact was going to be or how that was going to play out. But boy, the world changed. Like you said, that Sweet 16, you know, suddenly the NBA cancels their season. Once the Major League Sports, the NCAA tournament, Division I, completely canceled. And then the spring, the students go home. Suddenly online learning became a huge deal, and you're separated from your norm and your day-to-day activities. And you know, I think it's been hard on a lot of people. It's been hard on society, and you know, mental health. It's exposed the importance of mental health and how that's impacted people. It's just been really rough. I think it's you know, for young people not really understanding. I think for guys our age, we have a little bit more perspective of being able to maybe see the big picture. I really feel for the young people, you know, how their education's changed, their schooling's changed. Our guys, if you look at the seniors in high school and the seniors in college, the things that they had to miss, whether it was graduations, and so it's been a hard time for everybody. But through it, you know, there's always hope. And I think, you know, I tend to be an optimistic person. And, you know, what can we learn from this? what good can come of this. And I think perspective, perseverance, appreciation for what you have, the thankfulness in which you live every day. And we talked about that as a team a couple days ago at practice. How thankful are we that we get to come to practice? And if it means we have to wear a mask at practice, we'll wear a mask if we get to be together. And we'll do those little things to be able to enjoy a little bit of what we used to view as normal.
Would you agree too, Ron? This has been a really polarizing thing across the world, not just the United States. There's being someone that participates in Twitter a lot. I can tell you that there's the this is a hoax crowd, and then there's the other extreme, which is that this is going to kill everybody crowd, and probably in the
Yeah.
middle somewhere there's the best way to approach this, but it's really personal, and what matters is how someone feels about it. How have you as a leader had to deal with, I'm sure within your roster, within the campus, within your peer group, you've probably got people on both sides of that. How have you led through that?
Well, I think it goes back to, and it is really uh, disheartening when you see the divisiveness within the world and our country. And, I think that the first way leaders do is through their actions. And to be honest, it sounds corny cute saying this on a basketball I choose love. We're called to love each other, to care about each other. And I try to stay away from some of the political things and focus on unity and caring about each other, showing each other respect. And I think that's what we've tried to emphasize with our team as well, is caring about each other. Everybody's has things that go on in their life that we don't necessarily understand, but my job is to love other people. And it's just been hard. It's just been hard to see so much hate in the world. So I think our group has done a nice job with each other. And the other thing that try to do is being considerate of each other's emotions, what they're going through, their viewpoints, listening to people. And so I hope, as it's created a lot of great conversation. I think as hard as it is right now, I guess my hope is through the pain and divisiveness that we're going through, that if we can get through this and find common ground and unity, we will be better as a society and better as a country. And so that is my hope, that in the next weeks and months ahead, that we can come back together.
Yeah, well said. I've never seen a group of people collectively in the world wish a year to be done like 2020. We haven't exactly gotten 2021 kicked off to the greatest start of all time, but let's hope that we get to a better place, and let's hope that Division III basketball is one of the things we can all be excited about. Talk a little bit, Ron, if you would, about what the fall was like. So we talked about a little the summer, but then the kids come back to campus, which was something else that wasn't certain for a while. So everyone moves in and comes back. And I believe you were able to start practice. What was that like when you started practice in early October, and what was practice like?
Well, I'll be honest. I think what tough decisions for our leaders of different organizations. In our case, Illinois Wesleyan, to navigate through the unknown that's never been done before. And I give a lot of credit to our leaders on campus of navigating, getting our kids back on campus, instituting protocols to try to keep us as safe as possible. The goal was to get kids back so that learning can continue. We did that. Certainly there were lessons learned through experience, but we were able to successfully, as a university, be in person the entire semester. And I think that was a huge accomplishment that I was not super optimistic whenever all the kids returned that we were going to be able to do. That I thought there was a chance that we'd have to send them home again like we did in the spring. And credit and kudos to the leaders and students on campus for doing what needed to be done to have a college experience here. in terms of practice, we got to, because the whole campus and university was successful, it allowed us an opportunity starting October 1st to practice. And it was, I tell you, it was like Christmas morning, that first day of school, the excitement and everybody in a Titan jersey getting to practice. I mean, it was really exciting. And I'm really proud of our guys. We were able to practice starting October 1st, all the way through to the beginning of final exams with no delays, no shutdowns. Our guys did a terrific job. Some things are unavoidable when you're going to class. I mean, sometimes it's by chance you could test positive, but I think our guys did everything they could to wearing a mask, to social distancing, to limiting social contact activities, and focused on their academics and basketball. And it was a terrific fall. I mean, I thought we got a lot accomplished. It was different from a coaching standpoint, without the pressure of games and game prep and getting ready and making those decisions. It gave us a unique teaching opportunity to go slower, to go in more detail, to spend more time in certain things that you normally don't have. And so I think, especially for our young guys, they got some additional teaching that would not normally happen. And I thought our older guys were tremendous leaders. I think it helps when you have high expectations for a season, with as many returning players as we do, and the excitement surrounding our potential. That certainly helps when you have that vision of what you want to become. And just very proud of both our university and team.
And talk a little, if you would, about how your kids have had to live differently. I mean, I can't imagine going to college. I put myself back in 1991 and 2 and 3. I would not have been good, Ron, at COVID-19. I mean, I would be a guy you wouldn't want to be testing all the time, because I would have had trouble staying away from some of the things. I'm just thinking of how contagious this is, and the things that college kids do. They associate with others, they go places, and you don't have to do much. You don't have to do anything wrong to
Correct.
test positive. And I know
Correct.
some other universities in the CCIW had some issues in the fall. It doesn't mean that anyone did anything wrong. Just talk about the environment that your men are living through, and the women's team and all the other sports in this crazy time.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, you're living in a dormitory. You're going to class. You're going to the cafeteria to eat. You're absolutely right. You could do nothing wrong and test positive, contract the coronavirus, because it is so contagious. I think the key is just trying to be as careful and limiting those possibilities as you can. And that's all you can ask for. And what a hard time to be in college. That the college experience that you and I got to experience is different than what we're currently going through. And it takes a level of maturity that I would agree. I'm not sure I was mature enough at 18 to 22 to recognize. And, I think one of the keys to being successful in college to start with is priorities, being able to prioritize your time and where you're going to spend that. And now you're really asking to prioritize your activities and what you do. So again, these kids are having to experience something that we didn't. We're asking them to sacrifice in ways that we didn't have to. And I'm proud of I'm proud of our university. I'm proud of our kids, because they've been willing to sacrifice for the bigger picture. And that's hard to do when you're 18 to 22.
Well said. And, the life lessons learned here, to think about just within the CCIW, Connor Raridan's trying to play for a national championship. It gets called off. Derek Dotlich from Elmhurst. I guess those guys had to learn real quick that life isn't always fair. And usually we don't start learning those lessons till we're a few years older. But boy, what life lessons these guys on your program and everywhere else are learning right now.
Well, I've always said this. I think one of the great lessons you learn from athletics is perseverance. Is that you get knocked down. Every athlete at some point is going to lose a game. You're not going to play as well as you want to. you're not always going to get exactly what you want to, but to be able to persevere through that and continue to do your best, I think is it's such a valuable lesson that athletes, get to experience. Well, the world is kind of getting to experience that through this pandemic, that we don't always get exactly what we want. And how do you react to that often determines the joy you experience in your life, the purposefulness you experience in your life. And so I think we're all kind of experiencing some of those lessons.
Talk a little bit about the 6-week gap. When you left Thanksgiving, I remember watching the broadcast of the scrimmage that you had, that you sent out to a group of fans that could watch that. And you were interviewed by Eric and Joel afterwards. And in listening to you, and I put a lot of those clips on Twitter, I felt it was a little bit emotional. I don't know that you felt that you were going to get to coach your team again when those guys left. That's kind of what I was reading into that. Did you think that there would be a January 4th practice season? And did you think that there would be a game at that point in November?
Well, you're right. It is emotional. The thought of our seniors, our juniors, our team not getting to get back together and compete as a group. You get this window of opportunity, and you want that opportunity for kids you care about. And at that time, we're heading into the winter, heading where everyone's going home, exposed to a lot of different areas, Christmas, New Year's Eve. I was hopeful. Again, I've chosen to be optimistic, but the reality is really uncertain. And again, I just am thankful that our group was able to navigate 7 weeks of non-practice together. And our guys came back in great shape. They came back healthy. What a unique time. My blood pressure was down over Thanksgiving. I've never just been able to relax and enjoy Thanksgiving. I'm usually running to high school games and preparing for games. And it was an odd time. I really appreciated the additional family time that I got, but certainly missed seeing our team and preparing for games.
So team comes back, you start practice, I think it was on the 4th, and you're going along. And then there was a day not too long ago here that a schedule came out, a CCIW winter sports schedule, including men's basketball. And you're looking at this, and there are games and times. Was that the moment that you and the team took a step back and said, this might actually happen? Or what, the day the schedule came out, what did that mean to everybody?
Well, our approach as a group has been, we're preparing to play. We are preparing as if this is going to happen. That's our mindset. We're not gonna prepare any other way. We're gonna practice as hard as we ever do. Our thought was, let's be positive and let's get ourselves ready. That being said, until I saw that schedule, and I thought it was wise that the presidents, let's wait. There was no rush. Hey, let's keep moving in that direction. And then when we are very confident it's going to happen, then we'll do it. And I thought that was a smart decision. I mean, until you're really confident, and I thought that was a good way to approach it. And then when that thing came out, that really did send a statement, especially given the approach the presidents took, that we're not going to put it out till we are confident it's going to happen. And when it went out, I thought, game on, man. This is real. And I'm glad we approached it the way we did. And we've had 10 practices since we've been back. So we've got 4 before we play. So we'll only practice 14 times to play a real game. Pretty unique. And certainly it's an advantage to have as many returning guys that understand the system and that approach. They've been great leaders in terms of teaching younger guys. But it's exciting. It's super exciting to think. Again, I love coaching. I love preparing for games. There's just a deeper appreciation when it's taken away. And we get on that bus Saturday to head to Carroll. It's going to be very exciting.
I'm glad you mentioned the presidents because a lot of people from the outside don't necessarily understand that you guys aren't a professional basketball team, that you're students at a university and there's presidents and you're within a conference. So the CCIW has the Council of Presidents, the presidents of all 9 of the member institutions. The presidents are the ones that make major decisions like this. And, we won't get into all of that, but I'll just say maybe more of a statement on my end, and you can react if you want to. Pretty impressive dedication to your student athletes that those 9 presidents decided to give this a go. And look, it doesn't mean this is going to be perfect. There's going to be positive tests. I can promise you right now that within the 9 schools, there will be positive tests, and student athletes won't have done anything wrong. This may or may not last start to finish. I hope it does, but what a wonderful commitment with everything going on for the presidents to say, we believe in the student athletes, we trust them, and we're going to try this. Is that fair to say?
I totally agree with you. And again, they've done it with the wellness of the universities and the students within the universities at their heart. That they weren't going to do it if it wasn't safe. And they did their due diligence in terms of getting all the information and making sure it was safe. They didn't pull the plug right away before they got the information they needed to make the best decision they could. And so I really appreciate them. It's a hard time to be a decision maker in an environment like this. And you're when you're a decision maker, you put yourself in position to be criticized. And so I do appreciate their approach, and certainly we're excited that with the decisions that were made.
In terms of making this successful, which we all want it to be, and I believe there's a really good chance that this is going to work out well. But the idea is that when you get on the bus Saturday, that you have a group of players, coaches, managers, trainers, everyone has tested negative, and you get up to Carroll, and the gym is clean, and all the Carroll players, coaches, trainers, etc., media, scores table, everyone there is negative, and you play a game, and no one passes the virus back and forth. Now, that's easier said than done. Can you
Sure.
talk a little bit, as much as you can, and if there's things you can't talk about, that's fine. But what is the testing like? How do you ensure that you get on that bus Saturday and that you feel good about that?
Well, you're not just testing one time. You're testing multiple times, and you're testing. The NCAA guidelines. You test once a week. If you only play one opponent, is what's required. A lot of universities are doing more than that. If you play multiple opponents, you're testing 3 times in a week, and it has to be within a certain time frame before you play. And so you're right. It gives you a level of confidence that before we get on the bus, that everyone has tested negative for the virus. And then our my challenge to our program and everybody within it then is to be as careful as possible in terms of who you might come in contact with prior to playing. And again, if it happens, it's sometimes this is so contagious you can't avoid things. But because I think testing really does give you a high level of confidence that you're going into a very safe environment. The universities I know around here, led by Mike Wagner, our AD, we are cleaning and disinfecting and making it as absolutely as safe as possible.
And just along that vein, if you think about how, diligent everyone has to be, again, we mentioned you don't have to do anything wrong to contract this virus. And so as the season goes on and you see something out there that there's been a positive case and a game is canceled or delayed, just to stress to everyone, not really asking for your reaction, but please be understanding that that's the way this is going to be. You're seeing that at every level, NAI, Division One, the NBA, at every level, you're seeing games that are postponed or canceled because of positive tests. And that's something that fans are going to have to be aware of. Another statement, just for folks that aren't aware of the schedule, it's really unique. You play Carroll Saturday, and then Carroll comes to the Shirk Center, I believe it's Monday, and the whole schedule is set up where you're back to back against the same team. The idea is that limits the need to test because your 20 guys and their 20 guys are all that's around each other for a period of 2 or 3 days. then you test, and then it's on to the next group of games. And so it's really a great concept, and a lot of divisions and Division III schools are using that same model around.
Limiting exposure to different people is the whole thought behind that. And the NCAA came up with guidelines, I think, that it kind of initiated that thinking in terms of putting the schedule together. And the reality is we're going to have some stoppages within. I mean, the thought that every team's going to get to play 12 games and no one's going to get shut down just isn't realistic. It's going to happen. Be great if it didn't, but that would be unlikely. And so how you handle that as a group and those stops and starts, how it affects you mentally and how you can approach that certainly will determine the type of experience everybody has, as well as the likelihood of success within your team.
Just a quick note on the CCIW, and then we'll get into a little bit of your team before we wrap this up. But interesting year in the CCIW. A couple really legendary coaches left the league, retired in the offseason. Bosko Jurakovic, if you're making a Mount Rushmore of Division III coaches, he is in the conversation. He won 2 national championships. He was on the bench for 3 more before that. He's been around North Park, Carthage. Your reaction to Bosko retiring and what he meant to the CCIW over all that time, including you played as a player, you played against North Park teams coached by Bosko, and then you coached against him. What did he mean to the league?
Well, both Bosko and Gray are legends within the league. They both had such great success. They both are charismatic individuals. I think if specifically, since your question was about Bosko, I have vivid memories of him at North Park and those great North Park teams that won national championships and the teams that we competed against when I was a player. And so, I remember young Coach Bosko, and but he was always he's such a welcoming. I just enjoy talking to him. He's one of those guys that you look forward to talking to before the game, at coaches meetings, whatever it was, because he's just such a great personality, and he's also a giver. To be honest, he was a welcoming guy. He knew me as a player and called me Ronnie and pulled me over, and he was just a quality person. He developed great relationships with his players, and I thought he was tremendous in-game coach also. You always knew you had to be ready in those games. He was going to look for matchups, and you had to be on your toes because of what adjustments he might make during the game.
And his son, Steve, takes over. And even if Steve turns out to be John Wooden, would we agree that if we could pick playing against Steve as a player or Steve as a coach, we want to play against Steve Jurakovic, the coach? Is that fair to say, Ron? Are you going to go on record here?
That's a good, even if he's John Wooden, well, he was a heck of a player. Goodness gracious, was he a talented player, one of the best ever in the CCIW. And I'm excited for him. I not only appreciated Steve's talent as a player, but how he played the game. And then getting to know him over the years as the assistant coach, again, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. He's just a quality person and certainly a talented young coach that it's neat to see that he's following in his dad's footsteps.
And then another coach who's just done a phenomenal job that also retired in the offseason was Gray Giovanni at Augustana. Over 20 years, especially the last 10 or 15, boy, what a tough out Augustana has been under Coach G. His teams have had so much talent and size, and they've been so consistent and played such great defense. Your impressions of going against Coach G? I know you were on the same coaching staff as Coach G back in the day, and now you've coached against him. But your reactions to just the career of Gray Giovanni in the CCIW?
Well, we joked that now that he retired, we can be friends again. The Wesleyan Augie rivalry is a pretty intense rivalry. And I've known Coach G since I was 17 years old. He recruited me to play at Valparaiso. He was my coach. He then was instrumental in having me hired at Wichita State on the same staff that he was already on. So Coach G has been a mentor of mine for many, many years. And I'm glad he's retired. It's tough when your mentor and a close friend is also one of your biggest rivals. And he just he brought an intensity and a fire to his program and the games in which he played. And certainly, yeah, like you mentioned, that the last 10 years especially, they've had tremendous success. And I wish both Coach G and Bosco all the best in retirement. They've earned it. They've influenced hundreds of kids through their coaching careers. And again, two quality coaches, two quality people.
Yeah, we've certainly lost a little intensity out of the league coaching circuit. So either you've got to start throwing a code, or I was trying to figure out who the crazy guy is now. And maybe it's Shower, maybe it's Mike Shower. I don't know, but we've certainly lost a ton with Coach G. And I also give him kudos. Boy, what a great program he built at Augustana, and he will be missed. What a fiery guy! And there, I always had a line of when the jacket was going to go, over, under, and I swear he knew what the line was, and he would kind of play with me. So kudos to Coach
I
G.
swear that whole thing was choreographed. There's no way he'd throw the jacket. The manager would be walking in stride and grab the jacket. I don't know how he did that, but it was impressive. You know, the one thing I've said of being, I'm so honored to be a coach in the CCIW. You know, one of the, if not the premier small college conferences, and there's outstanding universities, but what great coaches throughout the league. And certainly those two are legendary. Hiring Steve Schaefer and Steve Jerichovic to fill their shoes. They are really good young coaches, but this league's full of really good coaches. Every night out, they bring out the best in myself as a coach, because you know, if you're not prepared and you're not at your best, you're going to be exposed, and your teams. And so I think it's one of the things that makes our league so great.
Absolutely. And just as we wrap up, let's just talk a little bit about the team. Anyone that wants the nitty gritty on this part can go to iwhoops.com. Just look at the part 1 of the season preview, where you can get into each player. You can get into how I project the rotation, not Coach Rose. So whenever there's upset parents, I always say it's mine. Come yell at me, not Coach Rose. It's Bob's projection, right?
I try to make that clear also, Q, that this is not coming from me.
Yes.
That this is this. And listen, I want to do this real quick. I appreciate and thank you for the unbelievable exposure you give to Division III athletics as a whole, specifically to Illinois Wesleyan men's basketball. It is, the excitement is different than when I played. You know, we're under the radar with the media often, but because of social media, and I'm not a huge social media, I'm not on it a lot. I think there's a lot of bad things that can come of it. The exposure it gives our sport and our players, dedicated players, is really a positive. So I want to say thank you, Bob, for all that you've done for our sport and our team in particular. But that is true that you are an individual, and in your views on Twitter are your views, including our team. And I've said, you know, hey, it raises interest. It gives information. It gets people excited about our team. And so I'm glad you said that. And I want you to know how much I appreciate you. And I appreciate the fact that you made it known that those are your opinions. And we're so lucky to have you as part of, you know, the fabric of what makes Titan basketball and the excitement around it so special.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'm always very clear as I can be, that, you know, when I interview you and ask you information about players, I synthesize that. I look at the rotation. I say, this is what I think it's going to be. Sometimes I'm very wrong. Sometimes I'm very right. Sometimes it's in the middle. But just as you, generally, as you prepare for Saturday, you've got a very veteran team here. You know, you've got really, I look at it, you've got 7 starters almost as I look at it. And you could start a lot of different combinations within that 7. And then after the 7, you've got a ton of talent. You've got to feel good going into a season with this much experience. And you've got Luke Yoder's a freshman of the year in the CCIW returning. Matt Laris was a first teamer, had a phenomenal second half of the year once he came back. Pete Lambesis was as good as anyone in the league. He earned second team honors. Not to mention guys that easily could have been all conference. Guys like Charlie Bear and Doug Wallen in particular,
Yeah.
Corey Noki, Andre Schumacher. You've got to feel great about the group that you have here.
Well, it's unique is because of the unfortunate injuries that we had last year, we needed guys to step up into roles and gain experience. And it was hard to go through, but it is part of what makes the excitement about this team is that we have a lot of experience because guys gained experience they may not have had the opportunity to have had we not had those unfortunate injuries. And so, we've had returning teams that have had perimeter guys returning, but young in the post, or you've got returning post guys, but you're young in the perimeter. We've got returning guys, in both spots on the perimeter and the post. I think you mentioned we've got some size. I'll say this: if when people tune in on Saturday, you're going to see a group of young men that have changed their bodies, and I've been really impressed. A lot of them have changed their diet. They've worked hard in the weight room. That is one of the things because of the pandemic. A lot of these guys, there wasn't a whole lot else to do. They worked out, and physically, we're a big, strong team. And we've got just a lot of experience coming back that understand. Part of it is understanding the level of competition, how hard you have to work, how hard you have to play. So yeah, it's a lot of expectations for this group, and I think this group embraces those expectations.
We had a big loss, obviously, Grant Wolf, who, and this was always a possibility that this could happen, but Grant suffered, I think it was 2 concussions last season. He had suffered concussions in his athletic career going back to high school before that. And I remember showing up to that game in Austin, Texas last year and learning that Grant had just suffered a concussion and was out for, I guess it was the Concordia game, thinking, wow, that doesn't sound good. And he didn't play another game last year. He only played 7. And it turns out that I guess the Wash U game a year ago at the Shirk Center was his final game ever. He was fantastic last year. When I think of the game at Augustana, the game we lost to Wash U, he was great. Averaged something like 18 points and 4 rebounds and 4 assists and shot over 50%. It's a big blow to lose Grant because I feel like he kind of got cheated out of both his junior and senior years.
Well, as a coach, you draw close to these guys, and it's heartbreaking that he's not able to complete his eligibility here at Illinois Wesleyan and play this year. He's a special kid. He's a gritty, hard-nosed player. Played the game the right way, and he was just coming into his own. Last year he was just coming in. He was growing into that new role, that new leadership role, more expectations. And he was just such a great leader at the point guard position. He understood as a junior, he really understood what we were trying to accomplish, where the ball needed to go, how to get it there, how to get people in spots. I mean, I've said it before, the coaching staff called him the maestro because he just orchestrated our offense so well. So I really, my heart goes out to him. He practiced a little bit in the fall, and boy, the sucker can flat out play. I mean, he doesn't play for however many months. He comes in, makes a couple snap passes that, very few at our level can make. And he's a great player, but I think the bottom line was his long-term health. And he didn't want to take a chance of getting a concussion, feeling the way he felt for months and months after the last one. And I completely understand that. I respect that, and I support it. I think it's the right decision for him. It is a big blow to our team because he's as good a point guard as there is in the country at our level. We are fortunate to have Luke Yoder on our roster, who, as you mentioned earlier, was a CCIW Freshman of the Year, had a phenomenal freshman year, given a lot of opportunity, unfortunately, because of Grant's concussions. So he comes back with a lot of experience as a sophomore at that position.
Then we won't get into all the freshmen, but you have a great freshman class. People can go online and kind of read all about that group that you landed, interestingly and amazingly, during a pandemic. One of the players that's in the mix here, it seems like, is getting some time and probably has a chance, is Ryan Soroka. Just to get into one of the freshmen, 6'5", big guard, wing player from Huntley High School that was one of your really big recruits that you landed last year. Without getting into what his role may or may not be, what does Ryan Soroka bring to the floor?
Well, I'll say this: the roles are one of the challenges of this pandemic. I think we talked a little bit before we started recording here. Is normally you've got you know a month, 5 weeks of preseason. You've got a couple scrimmages, and then you have 9 non-conference games where you can experiment and give different rotations, different lineups, different players, a look and see what makes most sense for your group. The unfortunate thing is when you have 12 games and your first game's a conference game, it doesn't give you that luxury as a coach anymore. And so as a coach, I'll say this, we're all going to be in a tough spot trying to make decisions and give opportunities that we normally could give. We're having to make decisions before we'd like to. Ryan, going back to your question, Ryan, we're super excited he's here. He's a baller. The guy loves basketball. He works tremendously hard at it. He's got a college-ready body. He has a level of intensity and fire you don't see a lot of freshmen. I mean, to be honest, early in practice, he's got such high expectations of himself. It's tough as a freshman. It's another level. You're learning a new system. And he was really hard on himself when he didn't play up to his expectation. I was pleased. I thought I could see he was getting better, but he's got that fire burning in his belly to be successful, and it really gives him a chance to compete at this level early because of that competitive maturity that he has.
And then, just with the game Saturday and trying to piece this all together, I think more than the X's and O's of that game itself, again, just as we start to kind of wrap this thing up, boy, when you get on that bus Saturday morning, that's going to be again, we're still crossing our fingers that we get on that bus, but when you do, that's probably going to be a pretty emotional moment for you and everyone associated with the program. Is that fair to say?
There's no question. It was emotional. We were able to conduct a scrimmage, and I guess I was going to say a closed scrimmage. They're all closed now, right? But it wasn't broadcast. It was just, but we were able to do a little scrimmaging this weekend, and just watching our guys warm up, it was emotional that I can't believe we're here. We're going to get to do this. And I hope we get on that bus Saturday. It'll just be really special. I mean, I'm not one to take for granted any season that I've gotten to coach or any game that I've been blessed to get to team, but because it was taken away, because of the uncertainty of whether we're going to get to play at all, it certainly heightens how special that will be, and the appreciation level. I won't mind a 3-hour and 15-minute bus ride to Carroll, right? Before you're like, oh, 3 hours and 15 minutes. Man, sign me up. Let's go. It's going to be, I tell you, Q, it is exciting to think that we get to toss the ball up and play Titan basketball on Saturday. And I can't wait for just the players' reaction. I can't wait for practice today. This afternoon, we're going to get together and start thinking about Carroll. So it is for all the CCIW teams, coaches, players. This is a tremendously exciting time, and let's hope these next 6 weeks go well.
Yeah, and I would extend that from a fan's perspective. It's been the same as you just expect basketball to start sometime in mid-November every year, and that's kind of what you do. Is certainly I'm used to following CCIW games every Wednesday and Saturday, and that's winter, right? And all of a sudden November comes around and there's no basketball. Everyone has a new appreciation for what it means, and I think everyone has an appreciation now for what Saturday means. And again, as we wrap this up, let's just make sure everyone knows there are complications along the way here. This may go perfectly, it may go terribly wrong as we go, but we're trying, and that the league is trying, as a lot of Division III leagues and schools are. Ron, your final thoughts. I will give that to you for any final thoughts you'd like to share. Well,
there's this big void that hope is going to be filled here these next few weeks of getting to play basketball, and I appreciate what the university presidents have done the students in general, they're having to sacrifice as much as the athletes to be able to come back to school and to have this college experience, and the appreciation of our players of the commitment they're making to have this happen. And it's going to be exciting for CCIW basketball. Titan basketball's back, Q. Let's go.
That's exactly where we should leave it, Ron. I appreciate it. I think you're my first guest on This Could Be the Start of Something. Just wait till I get Bob Spear on here. He won't be as level-headed as you. That I might have to censor that.
I tell you what, if you have these, if it's live, I'm tuning in every week to the Bob Quillman podcast for sure.
Well, I appreciate it, Ron. Kudos to you, the team. Please thank the guys for everything they're doing to make this possible. We understand what they're sacrificing, and go Titans.
All right. Thanks, Q.